Welcome to ACTPod, a podcast show that sheds light on the stories and impact of the social sector. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. Let's begin the change.
Hello there. You're welcome to yet another insightful and exciting edition of your favorite podcast show, ACTPod, our story, our continent. My name is Abiodun Owo and I'm going to be your host on this episode. Like you know, ACTPod, here at ACTPod, we talk about Africans making meaningful impact in Africa. And today is no different because I'm going to be talking to the Executive Director of Junior Achievement Nigeria in the person of Ugonna Achebe. Did I get that right?
Achebe.
I was so afraid I was going to murder your name that I kept rehearsing it. So, Ugonna, you are welcome to ACTPod. Like I said, Ugonna is Executive Director of Junior Achievement Nigeria. And today we're going to be talking about the wonderful things that Junior Achievement Nigeria has been doing in the lives of young people, of course. So we have a ritual, when we start, we like to first know the person we're talking to, tell us about yourself, where you came from. Of course, you can walk us through your journey with Junior Achievement and Junior Achievement Nigeria, and then we'll take it from there. So who is Ugonna?
So first of all, thank you for inviting me on this show. My name is Ugonna Achebe, and in formal settings, when people ask, who is Ugonna, I say I'm an educator.
Okay.
Right? I come from a line of educators. My mother is an educator and a businesswoman. Same thing with my grandmother. So hopefully one of my kids, they have to be
an educator as well.
But in an informal setting, when people ask me, who is Ugonna, I say I'm a catalyst. Because I believe that I have this enthusiasm to make change. I'm always all about impact, in smaller groups. When we have to do something or contribute for something, there's always that one person leading all these initiatives, and that's me. So I call myself a catalyst.
Awesome.
But my journey with Jan did not start today. My journey with Jan started in 2007 as a high school student. I participated in one of Junior Achievement's flagship programs back then in my school in Plateau State. So that was my very first encounter with Junior Achievement Nigeria. I did the program. It was truly impactful. And by the time I was done with school and I'd started teaching, I came to a point where I just realized that everything we did in school was all about academics. And I was asking myself, isn't there anything more for the students to do? And I kind of reflected back on my own experience, and I'm like, one thing that was truly important during my upbringing, especially in school, was Junior Achievement. And so I picked up my phone. I said, are they even still existing? And so I checked the website. I saw that, there's Junior Achievement. I said, okay, that's nice. So I called them. Hello, I'm Ugonna. I teach in Lekki Peculiar School. I'd like to bring Junior Achievement to my school. And that's how I kind of got reintroduced to Junior Achievement Nigeria. So I brought Junior Achievement to my school. And at some point I left teaching, and when I left teaching, I was doing home lessons, but I still needed to ensure that my days were filled with impactful stuff. And so I started volunteering with Jan for a period of 4 years. So during the morning hours, I volunteered with Jan, and in the evening, I did my home lesson. And did that for a couple of years. And one day I was called and they said, there is an opening and we want you to come and lead one of our teams in Junior Achievement Nigeria. And that team happened to be the program I did in high school. And so that's literally how my journey started with Junior Achievement Nigeria. And I was with Junior Achievement from 2018 till 2020. I moved on to African Leadership University. Went for my master's, and I am back.
With a bang.
I'm back as the Executive Director of Junior Achievement Nigeria. So that's literally my story.
All right. Maybe I should, probe a little further. How has that been for you? Saying that you have an interesting story. So you had been with them since you were a young person, and then...
So you're saying I'm old.
Now he's putting words in my mouth. Okay, when you were much younger, and then, even over the years, this is like, you have like 17-year history with Junior Achievement Nigeria. Can you tell us what that has been like from the person who was received at the receiving end down to the person who is the one leading the park now? What can you tell us about that?
I think it's a very interesting story, right? Like, obviously, a lot of things have changed. I can remember even when I got approved for the role, like when the publications were out, I saw a couple of messages from my high school friends, juniors, seniors, say, guy, so you used to carry this JA on your head back in high school, and right now you're leading it. Like, it's such an impactful story. So I think it's really good. Back when we did the JA company program, there were a couple of things that were not yet structured then. I think the way we saw it back then was the company program was all about students gaining entrepreneurship skills. And I think back then we're more focused on profitability, right? So we're just all about, let's make profits. So we did a couple of programs within our school, got students to buy popcorns, got students to pay for movie shows, got students to even have like a game night. We arranged like social gatherings within the school, and we're able to generate massive profits for all our stakeholders back then. And I'm talking about teachers. Like, I think the amount of profit we made for teachers, they were advocates for our program in the school, right? But right now, when you look at what Junior Achievement, especially, and I'm just talking about one of our programs, the company program, you realize that there is a lot more. There are various aspects to it right now. We're thinking about sustainability. We're not just telling the students that, starting a business is all about profits. You need to understand sustainability. We need to ensure that the business you're doing has to be sustainable. You need to ensure that, even the stakeholders that you're engaging with, one way or the other, you should be giving back to them. So there are so many facets to the company program. Even back then, majority of the programs were very theoretical. We're running the programs in traditional methods, education method. Right now, there is a digital component to a couple of our programs. So a lot has changed, even in terms of human resources, our human capital, development capital, a lot has changed. The people that we're bringing into the team right now, we are looking at emerging trends, in the world, and we have to ensure that the people that we're also bringing in within the team have those particular skill sets.
Yeah. Awesome. I remember one time we got a courtesy visit from some of the students under your program, and I was actually impressed with how they presented themselves, how they presented their ideas. They came, I think, as a company then, and they had team leads, they had project managers, and I was like, when I was in secondary school, I wasn't even thinking in this direction. So that brings me to, how you do some of the things that you do. And it's the fact that you provide experiential learning for your students. You want them to have hands-on experience. How exactly do you do this? If you could walk us through what you do with the students, because I know their students, they have their own curriculums to deal with. How do you now incorporate your program into what they're doing without, distorting their school curriculum and still achieving purpose?
Okay, so let me talk about experiential learning. I think there's an educational model that is like the 2010 educational model, right? Okay. And the way it's broken down, it says that the best form of learning is through experiential learning. And you're able to retain more this way, and that's 70% of what you like, your brain capacity. And then the 20% there is more of from peer-to-peer learning. When you do peer-to-peer learning, when you learn from a mentor, when you learn through excursions and all that stuff. And then the last 10% is through traditional learning. So like what we do in school, like, a teacher just lecturing, right? And if you notice, that's literally what's happening. It's like the reverse is the case.
Yes, all right.
The reverse is the case in Nigeria, probably in Africa, where 70% or maybe 90%, is done through, the teacher just passing the
Tell you what
knowledge,
to do.
right? And what we're doing at Junior Achievement Nigeria is, or through our programs, majority of our programs are experiential. For instance, again, I'll just focus on the company program. The company program, these students identify leaders. So they identify a CEO, they identify head of marketing, head of production, head of human resource, right? And they raise funds by selling shares, to their friends, to their teachers, to their parents, to anybody that believes in their idea. When they gain the capital right now, they're able to use this capital to now invest in their business idea. Right. And this business idea, the way, like I said, we're now focused on sustainability. So we encourage them to identify a problem within their community and prefer a business solution. Right. So you can see that everything we're doing is hands-on. Yeah. But guess what? That 20% where we say peer-to-peer learning from a mentor, right? These students are assigned mentors. Some of them come in form of volunteers. Some of them are even corporate bodies, like organizations actually come to us and tell us we want to work with you guys to empower students. And so with our programs, we integrate these volunteers, whether they're from corporate entities or whether they're coming as individuals. I served as an individual volunteer. So we go into the schools and we work with the students. Sometimes their ideas may be beyond their skill sets. And that's the role of a mentor. As a mentor, do I know somebody that can do this? Or can I even do this on my own? Right? And then they work with the students to be able to create something beautiful. Doesn't stop there, right? It doesn't stop there. So at the climax of the program, all the schools that are participating in this program, they gather for a competition called the SCOI. That's the State Company of the Year. So in the various states that we're holding these programs, the students come and pitch their ideas in front of professionals. I'm talking about financial experts, professionals, or financial experts, sustainability experts, entrepreneurs, right? They present an annual report. They present a financial statement. They also are required to do a CSR project, right? And all this is also judged in addition to them delivering the presentation. Wow. So it's an intense moment, goosebumps popping everywhere, right? And then the winners from the state competition now moves on to the national competition. So we get all the state winners, bring them to Lagos for the NCOI, right? And they battle it out all over again, different sets of judges. And then the winner from the NCOI now represents Junior Achievement Nigeria in the African or in the continental competition, which is ACOI. This year it's happening in Mauritius. All right. And, the students, majority of them, from what we've seen, it's usually their first time having traveling out of the country, right? I can remember in 2018, we had a couple of students. It was their first time being on a plane. Their very first time being on the plane. I can remember as well, and just Ghana, just 45 minutes flight to Ghana. Like, I can remember as the plane was taking off, they're like, wow. I said, look, I said, Mr. Wow. So, all those things are just exposure. And I think that's the role of education, to give children experiential learning and to ensure that they're exposed to opportunities, to experiences, because your exposure determines how far you can go. Your exposure determines how far you can even dream. So that's what we've been doing. And I think another question you asked is how we do it. So we know how schools are bombarded with so many things. So we've designed our program to run as after school extracurricular activities. Right. And it depends on the program. Again, some of the programs we can actually infuse it into some of the some programs we could infuse it during class conversations, right? But with the company program that has to do with a lot of intensity, you need grit and resilience. It's an after school program, and this program runs throughout the whole academic year. Yeah.
Awesome. I say again, these students are really, really privileged, because when I was in secondary school, I didn't have this kind of opportunity. I don't even know if, we have many organizations like Jan, around, around our country. And I must say what you're doing is phenomenal. Well done.
Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you very much.
So now that you have spoken about what you do and how you do it, I'm actually interested in knowing, so some of these students who have gone through your programs, they've gone through, those who have been privileged to go through the competitions at the state level, the national level, and, across the continent. What are some of the stories that you can see have come out of, some of these students? Perhaps maybe they have gone on to start to really start their own companies, or what are some of the transformations that you have seen in the lives of your students? If you could share maybe one or two stories.
I'll share with you 2.5 stories. The half story is me.
Oh.
So I'm the half story there, but let's talk about, so I'm going to break down, like you talk about, like our successes, right? I'm going to break it down into outcomes and impact.
Okay.
Right. And the reason why I'm doing this is, I believe that this is a good medium to even communicate with, other organizations that may want to partner, right? Sometimes they come to us and they say, these are the impacts we want to see. But impact is actually seen over a long period of time, right? But when you talk about outcomes are things that you can easily see. So for instance, since inception in 1999, Junior Achievement, we've reached over 1.5 million students or beneficiaries. Now, those are just outcomes. They're just numbers, right? That's our reach, right? But when we're talking about a couple of success stories, I'll merge 2 stories into one for outcomes, and I'll do the same thing for impact. So outcome, we had this school in Ajegunle, Caro Favored School. I think this was in 2016 or 2017. They represented Nigeria in for the ACOI, the African Company of the Year in Mauritius. The students, they did remarkable. Their presentation, goosebumps. Speaking about it right now, I could even get very emotional, right? But they didn't come, they didn't have any of those prime positions that we wanted. They didn't come first, second, or third. They didn't even win any prize, right? But a couple of the students were identified, right, by a university, African Leadership Academy, and they reached out to us and they said, we wanted these 2 students to come and join our institution on a fully funded scholarship.
Awesome.
It gets interesting. So we approached the school, they were excited. We approached the parents, they were on the boys' side, the parents were excited. On the girls' side, the excitement was a bit toned down. So it gets interesting. So, we kept pushing, having that conversation. I think with the boy, there was a smooth sailing. He was able to, we got his approval. The school was, and it's the same school as well. The school gave us their backing, the parents, so the boy was all set. Now, the girl, on the other hand, I think the father had a drawback. He didn't want to let his girl leave the country, and that question, we cannot answer it. And just another story again, another student, their school didn't make it for the ACOI, but, when we see this type of opportunities, we also like to connect our students to this type of opportunities. Or we do have some partnerships with some universities where we also connect our students to these universities. And this young man did the program, got the scholarship, because one of the things we also do is that as far as you're part of our alumni, we try to ensure that you're able to gain beyond even Junior Achievement Nigeria. This young man gained a scholarship, and then his father said he has not yet heard from God. His father has not heard from God. So these 3 stories, the first boy now went to ALA, finished his 2-year program. From there, he also gained a scholarship to go to Notre Dame in the US, fully funded scholarship. I think he's studying computer engineering or software engineering. And right now he's doing his internship in Amazon. I think next year is going to be done. The girl, I think she went to a Nigerian school right now, and she's into pastries, right? But when you look at the trajectory of their life so far, right now we're just counting outcomes, right? You can see that they're both going in different paths. But the good thing is that they still had their education, and the girl was able to use some of the skills she gained during the company program to start her own business, even as she was still going to university, right? Now, the third boy that I was talking about now, I was working with that young man, and we had a really tough time with his dad. The mom was all in, but when you're talking about matters of family, the mother cannot be one side and father cannot be one side. So the mother was with us, but the father was not with us. But the mother had to align with the father, and the boy had stayed at home for 2 years. WAEC results, NECO results, beautiful. He couldn't write JAM again, also because of financial constraints. So for 2 years, he was just idle. And so this opportunity came, submitted everything, and he was thinking, and we're brainstorming. And so one day he just called me and he just said, Mr. Ugonna, I'm going to be 18. And this was during the peak of COVID. He said, this was in July. He called me, he said, in July, I'm going to be 18. What does the law say about, because we needed the signature of his dad. So what does the law say about me signing my considering I'm not an adult, so what does the law say? And me being in that position, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to put myself in any dilemma or something. So I had to look through the books and everything. And, I told him that, you're an adult, so you can be able to take decisions. December reached, and, he called his parents and he told them, he just ran away from home, actually. He ran away from home, and 30th December, he told them that he was going to pray in the mountain. He just sent a message, I'm going to pray in the mountain. January 2nd, he was on a flight to Mauritius, and he told them that, he has not been kidnapped. He has not been taken anywhere. He's just going to school. And he has been there in Mauritius for the past 4 years. And he just graduated this year from African Leadership University and is currently working in Mauritius. So these are just some success stories. When you talk about impact, the current executive director of NIBS, Mrs. Ugonna Achebe, she did the venture management program, the pioneer set in year 2000, right? And during our 25th anniversary, she was the keynote speaker. Now, this is a woman that did the program 20 years ago, but she's still 25 years ago, and she still remembers the impact that the venture management program had. So she's now leading the program, and she recommends people to even do JAN programs. She doesn't just lead an organization. She also supports Junior Achebe Nigeria to increase our skill. Same thing also applies to the founders of CC Hub and Flutterwave, right? Honorable Minister of Bosun Tijani, Inya Aboyeji, these people are now employers of labor. So the company program is not just about enabling students to just learn these entrepreneurial skills. We want to ensure that they're able to put these skills into practice.
Awesome. Oh, wow. That's that is some success story, I must say.
So it depends. We have, like public schools, private schools, middle income schools. So when we're dealing with like public schools or government-owned schools, we work closely with the ministries of education in each state, which is they've been really helpful. With private schools, we do engage them one-on-one, and we do have other associations. But right now, we do have a network of schools where every year we try to increase that numbers. We try to increase our reach. So schools that are interested in participating in our program, sometimes schools do reach out to us. I just made a post on LinkedIn where, somebody said we need to go to a father school in Ikorodu. When we go to these schools, we also do an evaluation to see that these schools have critical components that we can work with.
Yes.
Do they have like a teacher that will support the program? Do we have a volunteer there? Because at the end of the day, we understand that teachers are overwhelmed, right? So if you don't have a dedicated teacher that can work with us, it may not work.
Okay.
If we do have a volunteer within that region, right, then we can work something out. So these are just a few ways we do work with schools, but we do have like a criteria of
that you work with.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so let us talk about of course, Junior Achievement Nigeria is doing a lot, achieving a lot, around here. I suppose you're not doing that alone. You don't do that all by yourself. So collaboration I don't think there's any conversation we've had here that we've never talked about collaboration and partnerships. So what are some of those strategic partnerships you have built over the years, and how have they worked for you? And then we'll quickly talk about, your relationship with ACT Foundation as well.
So collaboration is really important, whether it's with the public sector, the private sector, educational bodies, the government, collaboration. Without collaboration, you can't grow, right? We do have a lot of partners we work with, like I mentioned, the ministries of education, state ministries of education. Without them, we won't be able to have the number of reach we have across various schools. Right? Without them, there is no number, right? When you're also talking about private organizations, some private organizations, they understand that their strength is not in delivering impactful projects or initiatives.
So they'd rather work with you.
So they'd rather work with us.
Okay.
We collaborate together and we tell them, this is how, if you're trying to reach this number of students in this program, this is exactly how to do it. And they said, you know what, you're the experts, go ahead. And we also work with NGOs as well. Like, recently we're having a partnership with Leap Africa to deliver a program. So I believe that in as much as we're in the same space, we're not in a competition. The main aim, the mutual gain, is to ensure that we have impact. We're trying to ensure that we educate youths to become conscientious business leaders, right? So collaboration is really key in our space. And ACT Foundation, I think ACT Foundation they've been one of our sponsors since the inception of ACT. ACT sponsors the company program, which is the entrepreneurship flagship program in some of the Southwest states. And these stories are remarkable. It's safe to say that the kids that I just mentioned, they're all from the Southwest states. So these are some of the stories, not just Junior Achievement Nigeria stories, but these are also ACT Foundation stories that, we would love to tell over and over and over again.
Awesome. Yeah. And we're glad to be associated, with the successes that you're experiencing so far. So finally, as we close, what would you like to say to perhaps leaders like you who have this kind of mission? They have this kind of mission in mind. They would like to impact the lives of young people, but they don't know exactly how to go about it. What would you like to say to them to start with?
So I think what I would like to say to them is we all need to be a learning organization, right? And sometimes the best form of learning comes through failure. And the only way you can fail, it doesn't mean you fail all the time, but the only way you can fail is if you try, right? So I think the tagline should just be, just do it, like Nike, just do it. Nike. So if you don't do things, you wouldn't be able to learn. Whether you are able to fail or whether you're able to succeed, there's always going to be a learning curve there. So we should all be learning organizations. Speaking on learning again, probably because I'm an educator, I think we should be able to document every failure or success. Be it, for instance, ACT Foundation, waxing strong. Why haven't we had maybe a case study on ACT Foundation that we could even use, during our day-to-day conversations? What turbulent time has ACT Foundation faced that, other NGOs, young NGOs can learn from? What turbulent times or innovative ideas or, has Junior Achievement gone through or other NGOs gone through that we believe that these stories shouldn't just be kept within the organization? We should be able to share all these stories. And, I believe there are so many organizations we could partner with to do that. There's Lagos Business School, there's even still ACT Foundation. So I think the key line here is we need to be a learning organization and we should not be afraid of failing. And lastly, let's just do it.
Awesome. There you have it from Ugonna. And I think I picked from you the fact that failure is not a bad thing. I think one of these days we should bring someone, to come talk about failure on this podcast. Yeah, failing forward. It's not bad to fail. Failure is also part of learning. Thank you so much, Ugonna, for making our time to be here. It was nice talking to you. And on that note, that is where we say goodbye from us at ACTPod. See you again next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to ACTPod. For inquiries and feedback, please reach us on actpod@actrustfoundation.org. Follow us on social media at actfoundation_ on Instagram and Twitter, and Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation on Facebook. The show is proudly powered by Aspire Coronation Trust Foundation. ACTPod, our story, our continent.